Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really excited about our next presenters right now, Tim and Kristen. They need no introduction, but just in case you don't know who they are, you're in for a treat. I'll let them take it away.
Thank you. What an organic introduction. All right, we're going to get started. Kristen, you want to introduce yourself quickly? Other than your Kristen, anything else you think people need to know, and then I'll do the same, and we'll get going.
Sure, sounds good. So, nice to meet you all. My name is Kristen Esbach. I am the director of ASOC at an unnamed large pharmaceutical corporation whose leadership happens to just right now be walking in the door. No pressure. No, I'm not scared at all. Prior to exiting and entering into the private sector, I spent 19 years within a combination of the cleared defense contractor land, working in the DoD and the intelligence community. I love the adversary. I hope they don't feel the same way about me, but nonetheless, they keep coming after my network, so let's go have some fun.
Did you say you love the adversary?
Yeah, they're fascinating.
It's like loving
to
your
study.
enemy. That is like
They're
highly
fascinating
philosophical, and wow, what a good human being. I didn't
So,
know that about you.
among the places I happen to hang out, my last 7.5 years before I exited into the private sector were at MITRE. Hence why Tim jokes that I am probably the entertainment here. So if you've looked at MITRE and you know MITRE ATT&CK, I was a MITRE ATT&CK team member, and I was one of the individuals who led the creation of pre-ATT&CK. The way, way, way old version, long before you had the now pre-domain that most of you guys know. Take it away.
Thanks, Kristen. I'm Tim Wainwright. I'm the CEO of Security Risk Advisors. I have been a pen tester and a GRC person and a security strategist, but to be honest, security's neat. I still like it. We're going to talk about some new things here too, but for me, it's all about the people at this point. My passion is starting careers in cyber for job changers and for students, and my organization is focused on bringing people in who want to be here doing this cool stuff with us. You'll notice there's a bingo card up top. It's mandatory. I wish it wasn't, but you have to play bingo if you're here. My suggestion is you take a picture of the bingo card with your phone. If you don't want to take a picture of the card with your phone, I still recommend you take your phone out because it's a way for you to check your email without looking rude. And you can really do that through the duration. In fact, I'm giving you a huge gift here because if you get bored with the presentation and you're looking at your phone, I'm just going to assume you're playing bingo and trying to figure out if you've won, wait for it, something from our prize table. It's a highly curated prize table. There are some new and gently used items. There's actually something, there's something really interesting here. We actually have a Flipper Zero. Some people saw this coming in. I want to point out that I'm not giving away a Flipper Zero because I want you to steal cars. You can steal cars with almost any of the prizes on the table. The Flipper Zero just makes it a lot easier. So if you want a shortcut and you need a ride out of here, that's there for you. One of the other prizes that I want to point out to you that is highly in demand is, I put this together myself. This is an unofficial RSA Art of the Possible art kit. Now, whoever wins this, and I need to give this to somebody early on, whoever wins this is important. You have a very important responsibility to start illustrating right now. There's watercolors in here and there's small art paper, and I have a small glass of water for you because again, this is like a desert in here, and if you're thirsty, I'm sorry, you can drink the water, but I really ask that you do this. And here's my commitment to you. I want you through the session to illustrate what we're doing. Have you ever been to one of those talks where they have a professional artist and like a big whiteboard and they draw stuff and they write down words and it comes out really good? Yours is gonna look terrible. Unless you used to do that. And if you did, you need to win the prize. But I'm counting on you to illustrate the session, and I am going to post it on LinkedIn as like the official recap of this talk. Attributed to you or not, and here's the other thing. I promise no matter what you write, I won't censor it. Because I'm not going to tell you what art is. This is the art of the possible. So if you have profanity, nudity, things like that, this is art, and I will put it up there. Somebody's got to win this. And I know you're thinking right now, there's no way we're going to go up there to this prize table and do any of these prizes and do the things that Tim's asking us to. But here's the thing, you will. And you may not have known this, but there was also a small waiver for this session that you're also willing to volunteer to be part of our program. And we're going to have a couple of different volunteers. So I'm going to start with 2. Can I have 2 volunteers to volunteer for something? Yes, please, you're in. Just come on up and grab one of these microphones. This is what's special about these first set of volunteers. They don't even know what they're volunteering for. And this has gone on for like 4 or 5 minutes now, and they're like, is this guy for real? So like, what is this about? What's going to happen? Do I have one more volunteer who doesn't know what they're volunteering for? Yes, please. This is your microphone. Come on up. Come on up. Are my mics on? You need to talk into the mics. I didn't know that about microphones.
Hello.
But be close. Don't turn around. No, don't turn around. Don't turn around. Okay, good. All right, so we're going to get started with a little icebreaker before Kristen and I hit you hard with insight. It's on the bingo card, by the way. Do look out for this stuff. This stuff will happen. That will happen in the course of this. But that's not how you're initially going to win the prizes. We're going to start with NIST CSF 2.0, the game show. All right? And here it is. All right, so let's get to know you. What's your name and where are you coming from?
I'm Jen Smith. I work for Washington Technology Solutions, which is a service provider for the state of Washington, and I work in the Office of Cybersecurity there.
You're a security person? Jen, what is your favorite compliance framework? We need to get to know you.
I live in the NIST CSF world.
Oh, you're going to crush this.
I pull some other stuff in as far as references.
All right, Jen, welcome. And you?
I work for a pharmaceutical company. It's a
massive one?
No.
Okay.
It's like 400 people. It's Amylyx Pharmaceutical. I work as associate director for cybersecurity there.
Okay. And what is your favorite command and control framework?
MITRE. I don't.
Fine. It's a little different. Doesn't matter. All right, let's get into it. So here's how it's going to work. We have special microphones.
Indeed.
And where'd the buzzers go?
I gave them to him.
Oh, you have the buzzers. Excellent. All right, here's how it's going to go. I'm going to read off the question, and if you've got it, you buzz in, and we'll see if you've got it. Here's the thing. Some of these are tricky, but we're going to start with an easy one. When was 1.1 released, not 2.0? Yeah.
2013.
2014. It was the executive order was 2013. So good guess, good guess. All right, next one up. Which department funds NIST? Department of Defense? Is that you,
Homeland
Jen?
Security.
The Department of Commerce.
I was
Are paying the bills. Weird, right? Not the Department of Frameworks. Okay. Besides governance, which existing function grew the most?
Oh, son of a.
Yes. Sorry, your name again? I'm so bad at it. I know
Nate.
Jen and?
Nate.
I can't read that. You
Nate.
said Nate?
It's like the word faith with the N instead.
Oh, I love that. Nate. I got it now. Nate, yes.
Protect.
Do you have a guess, Jen?
Detect.
Recover.
Really?
A small function that grew by just a little.
I've been mapping these. I have no excuse for this.
I feel like you didn't need to remind us. You started out by saying you're the NIST expert, but it's new. It's new. And I wrote all of these within like 24 hours of it coming out. I was on a plane and I was like, I have an idea for a game show, and here we are. Okay, which function shrunk the most? Yeah, Jen.
Identify, because it lost governance and the supply chain stuff.
What?
My mapping is not going well.
Don't even why would you have memorized your mapping? That's why you map it. That's why you write it down. Right? It's still a good exercise. How many subcategories does the new governance function have? Yeah, Nath.
It was I think it's 18.
A massive, whopping 31 functions under the new governance one.
Admittedly, it's been
You guys are 0 for 5 now. All right. Thanks for being good sports. And actually, let's pause there. I need 2 new contestants. But first, Jen and Nath, come on up. We're going to give you a prize. Give them a hand. I can. I'm holding. Thanks. Give me thanks. Yeah. Okay. So one of you, please take the art kit. Yes. Illustrate.
Please take the class.
Yeah, you need that for the watercolor. You got the Flipper Zero. Yeah. Awesome. That's actually you can hawk that. That's sorry. It's not allowed in Canada. All right. Yeah, don't try to take that to Canada. But you're fine here. I actually kind of tried to make a point of as I was going through security, I'm like, see this? And they also let me in the building with it too. So I'm like, it's fine. All right, 2 new volunteers. We'll keep this moving and then we'll get into some hard-hitting insights. Anybody else? Now you know what you're signing up for. Yeah, please come on up.
Come
yeah,
on
come
up.
on, come on up. And your name?
Hi, I'm Anuja Birari. I'm with Palo Alto Networks Unit 42. I'm a cybersecurity consultant.
Awesome. Thank you, Aluja. Aluja, what is your favorite function?
Function.
NIST-CSF function.
Respond.
Respond. Nobody picks respond. I like that. I'm just glad you didn't pick identify, and surely not governance, because we went way overboard with that. And you?
Hi, my name is Eric. I'm in the Air Force.
Okay.
And I'm stationed in Virginia. I'm a server admin.
Oh, very cool. All right, Eric, what is your favorite TCP port? You don't ask somebody that, like when you meet them?
I did say I'm in the military, so it's just copy paste.
So, like none? No TCP?
I like them all, you know.
Like you're not, so most people, if I ask them that question, they're like, what? And then they're like, FTP, right? But here's the thing, that's not true either. That's just the first one they thought of. Nobody likes FTP, which is 21. All right, you're off the hook. You're off the hook. Let's go to the next one. Which has more categories or subcategories, 1.1 or 2.0? Yes.
1.1.
Good call.
Correct.
Good call. All right, next up. This is the word problem section of the SATs, right? And so all of these, you actually have 6 choices. One sec. 6 choices. I'm gonna let you go, Aluja. I'm gonna let you go. You actually have more than 6 choices because none of the above is also an option I just didn't have room for on the slide. So, a standard method for calculating, documenting, categorizing, you already read it all. Okay, yeah. Aluja, tell me what it is.
Identify.
Oh, well, you were super confident. You came in hot on that one. All right, next up. Tabletop exercises are conducted to evaluate the organization's incident response preparedness for various types of incidents. Did you do that, or was that? I realize this is like hugely flawed because they don't light up. I'm just like, this sound there, sound there. I think it was Aluja again. What do you think?
Respond.
No, because we have 104 controls in this CSF, but they refuse to acknowledge that we all do tabletop exercises.
Yeah.
We had room for it, but no, we don't have it. It's not in any of them. That was one that I wrote with AI. Next, threats, vulnerabilities, likelihoods, and impacts.
Maybe you should send it to CSF. Ask them.
Yeah, I'm not on that committee. Impacts are used to understand inherent risk and inform risk response prioritization. Who was that? Was that Eric? Yeah.
Yeah. Protect. Damn,
Identify.
dang it. Yep, that's what I was going to say.
Well, here's what I'm pointing out. The controls are good, but they could really be anywhere. All right, we got a couple more of these, then we'll get to it. The organization forms steering committees to conduct oversight of risk management. Yeah, Aluja.
Governance.
No, this is a fake one I wrote with AI too. But you would think, though, that this would fit nicely into one of the 31 governance functions. It checks out. Yeah, my point is we could have written this CSF like pretty quickly all by ourselves. No offense to anybody who did it. Okay, got a couple more. Secure software dev practices are integrated and the performance is monitored throughout the SDLC. See, now you're afraid to buzz in because you're like, any of these could be fake, right? Aluja.
Protect.
Ooh.
Wait, was that the first one anybody got right? Oh! All right, you're going to get a prize regardless, and all the good ones are gone. Next, the organization provides a complete, prompt, and unquestioning response to auditors and regulators. Yeah, Eric.
Respond.
I mean, we probably should question our auditors and regulators a little bit. Yeah, that one's facetious, but yeah, ultimately we do whatever they say, right? Okay, next, threat-informed security testing is conducted to test controls and inform anomaly detection improvements. Yeah, Aluja.
Detect.
So.
I do not like AI.
So please, I think that's our last one. Please come take a prize. Here's some sample prizes that aren't here anymore. If you don't like any of the prizes, I will give you cash from my wallet, which I have here in my vest. I've done that before. These other things aren't here anymore. No, getting back to this one, I only want to say, from your lips to NIST's ears, because this is what we're going to talk about, and this is something that we all should be doing. Okay, back to my prizes. Oops. Kristen, please tell us what we're going to solve.
Sure, sounds good.
Oh, can you please hold the microphone, though? Just kidding.
On occasion.
Thank you, thanks. Oh, come get a prize, come get a prize.
Come on up,
Thanks.
grab a prize. Thank you for participating.
I want to point out that one of your choices, and it's hard for me to part with, but one of your choices is actually my challenge coin for being a speaker here. I'm willing to part with it. So you could tell people you did this talk technically and prove it. Or take one of the other things, that's fine. This is a Barbie-themed SRA shirt. I found it in him. No, whatever. Take something and then have a seat. And Kristen, please tell us what we're gonna do here.
Cool.
You got one. Yeah, you're great. Good.
Awesome. All right, so I want to take you guys back about 10 years ago. So stop for a moment and picture and think about where you were. 10 years ago, I had left one company, just started at MITRE, and I had 3 projects at the time. Creating Pre-Attack from scratch, which was ridiculously fun and slightly insane. Trying to operationalize Attack in our very first sponsor, where the network defenders were sold on the idea of it, and the leadership wasn't so sure about it, and assessing an unnamed government SOC that needed a lot of help. So in going through and trying to work out how do you really operationalize Attack, we knew we didn't have to sell the network responders on it. They had looked at the framework, they had seen the early versions, they liked what they saw, and they were eager to learn more. But in order to be able to continue the project, and in order to get their leadership to even believe us, they told us that they had to sell their leadership on it. And their leadership looked at Attack and saw a matrix of boxes and didn't necessarily understand what to do with it or the power of it and how to utilize it and how to message with it. And to be fair, that same problem still exists today. It's one the Attack team has known about for a long time. We've worked through a lot of ideas. We worked through a lot of challenges. How do you really make this effective? So you guys have the exact same problems. You want a board level story to talk about the nation state adversaries who are eating your lunch and the e-crime and the ransomware actors. You may have leadership who has heard the words MITRE Attack and tells you that they want you to embrace it, but you're trying to figure out what that really means and how do you really do that. And you know that your board has a limited attention span and you've got to speak for impact with quantifiable numbers and a compelling story that they will really take heart to and will really acknowledge and it will really resonate. But we know that MITRE Attack isn't unfortunately designed to tell this consistent threat resilient story. But the way that I used to tell it to sponsors, the way I tell it now to my own leadership and to others who ask me about it, is through the thing we did in the beginning of my time and all through my years at MITRE in the process of doing purple teaming exercises, which is why I joked that the talk the hour before us stole all my party lines. Because we know that Attack is inherently designed to continually expand. It's got tactics at the top, it's got techniques down the middle, they've added sub-procedures a few years in, as well as other procedures. And if you try and break it down even a step further, you could take a technique, you could take a procedure, and there is still a significant large quantity number of ways to execute that procedure. And you've got to be able to get down to how do you really tell that story. So the way we told it at MITRE was by doing about 16 games over the 7.5 years I was there. And by taking those games out to sponsors and doing all the purple team exercises. By getting them to realize that thinking about how you defend a network at the network level wasn't just gonna hold water anymore, and you had to assume the adversary was already in your environment, and you had to think about what were you really gonna do to find them when they were already there. And how were you gonna message up some kind of metric, some kind of key point to help your leadership understand. And so the name of the game is really about continuous threat-informed improvement and iterative progress. It's why you hear things like the Center for Threat-Informed Defense out of MITRE, Ingenuity, and CTED. Because at the end of the day, the adversary has the advantage, but by doing purple teaming and doing iterative progress, you can flip that burden. So let's flip over to the next slide, and I'll hand it off to you.
Yep. So now we're going to focus on what can you do, but first, let me take you somewhere else too. Anybody know where this is? Actually, it's very clear where that is. I was just thinking it was a Ferris wheel. I'm like, oh no, Big Ben's actually in that shot. In 2020, early 2020, I was over in London at the request of a couple of the large banks that were getting together and doing like a little bit of a mini summit. And they all used a platform called Vector. Has anybody heard of Vector? A few of you. That's actually my platform. And if you use it, you're welcome. And we're going to show you how you can use it here too. It's a free platform, so it's one of the resources we're going to be leaving with you. But these bankers in London had the same problem that Kristen was talking about with how do you actually operationalize MITRE ATT&CK. And the problem was they were getting pressure from their regulators and auditors who, again, they couldn't question. And they were saying things, these regulators and auditors, like, when are you going to be 100% compliant with MITRE ATT&CK? And there's a lot of things wrong with that sentence, compliance and 100%, namely. They didn't understand what it was, but the problem is my friends over in London still needed a story around this. And one of them, a very smart individual that I won't name right now because he's highly secretive and this is being recorded, who's still involved with the effort we're going to show you, said, you know, we're banks and we understand the idea of an index, the Dow Jones, the S&P, et cetera. These represent the market, but they're not the entire market. They're there to help us understand a part of it that we need to understand for a specific purpose for ourselves. What if we created an index of MITRE ATT&CK that focused on the most important areas, and that became the center of our story for what we were going to adopt and be able to talk to senior management about? So that's what we did. Kristen, you want to talk about the process that we've been doing now for 4 years since then with the banks, 3 years since then with the healthcare industry, including your contribution, which is why I said, would you please come tell everybody how awesome this is, and 2 years now for retail and hospitality industries, and 1 year for OT and manufacturing. So we're going to show you how this is. Kristen, how does this work?
Cool. All right, so across the top, you see the adversaries that today are in the Health and Life Sciences Index for this year. Picture all of the companies within your industry vertical getting together. Tim and his team run about 5 to 6 workshops over the course of roughly about a month and a half or so. In that time, threat intelligence professionals, SOC directors, SOC analysts, incident responders, cyber response professionals, anyone who is interested comes on in with the evidence they have from what they have seen that year. Who are the adversaries who have attacked us? What are the tactics, techniques, and procedures that they have executed? What is the malware that they have used? And what are the TTPs of that malware? It can be nation-state groups, it can be e-crime, it can be ransomware. We also sometimes review prior adversaries from previous years and look at, are they going up? Are they going down? Are we seeing them more often? Are we seeing them less often? Do they still hold water? Have they moved on to a different industry? Part of the reason why we have those conversations is so that we are stepping back and consciously, purposely evaluating who is truly coming after us, who has been after us in the past, who looks like they may be headed for us in the future. And above all else, purple teams and exercises of this nature are only as useful as the threats and the adversaries that you're looking at. Are you keeping it current? Are you looking at something that actually matters? If you prepare against an adversary never set to go against your vertical, who has never ever declared an interest, how prepared are you really? There are always going to be those black swan events, but still look and have the conversation and have the meaningful exchange. And furthermore, because we know attribution is hard, you don't have to bring just the adversaries for which you have adversary assessment or adversary attribution on. If you have something that you want to bring and say, I have an unnamed actor who is executing the following techniques, and this is what I am seeing, and this is the consistent pattern, and this is the length of time duration I'm seeing it, that is fair game information too.
One thing I want to point out about this is, we've got some graphics here. This is all from the Vector.io website. This test plan that we facilitate every year is free. The platform we're going to show you how to use it is also free. If you, from your organization, wants to participate in creating this future test plan, that's also free. You just got to know us. We'll add you to the list. It's Chatham House rules, blind copied, and you get to join these workshops, and they're actually quite fun. One of the core concepts I want to introduce here, if you decide to use this test plan and the benchmarks that come with it, it is intentionally compact. It is not 1,000 things. It's not 100 things to do. It's actually 50. Because what we've done over years of doing this and working with Kristen and other great Intel leads is understand that whether our adversaries are from Oh, I keep forgetting I'm recorded. I'm just going to let it go. Whether they're from North Korea, whether they're from Russia, whether they're from Canada, looking at you, Canada, you won't let my prizes into your country. Wherever they're from, they actually, when you map their actions to MITRE ATT&CK, they have more in common than not. That's how you get compact. You allow yourself to focus on the things that are in common, right? There's an index for everyone, kind of. So there's a lot of stuff up there. Check this stuff out on Vector. These are basically test plans that you can use. But I want to take another step back and introduce what is this test plan focused on. These are two very simple words that both begin with V, but you may not have thought about their relationship and what's different about them. So vulnerability is whether you're exploitable at a point in time. And no, you're not studying for your CISSP, again, all over. We all know this, right? But visibility, this is key, assumes that you've been vulnerable. That's when visibility matters, right? There's a lot of ways to test for vulnerability. You're already doing it. Your vulnerability scanning, your attack surface management is identifying those types of things. Your penetration testing, your red teaming, et cetera, are helping you identify vulnerabilities in your environment. There are not as many ways to do this for visibility. And we'll talk about some. Kristen's mentioned purple teams a couple of times. And if you've not distinguished in your head the difference between a pen test and a purple team, this is the key. A pen test tests for vulnerabilities. A purple team tests for visibility gaps. And when it comes to adversary resilience and being prepared for adversaries, we want you to think about visibility more than vulnerability. They will find the vulnerable system. That will happen, and you could be vulnerable at a point in time, even if you're really good at your job. It's not your fault. There's a third-party software that you have, and all of a sudden you're vulnerable. Not your fault. But visibility picks up with when that attacker has achieved a foothold. That's when we want our 50 test cases to kick in, and for you to have confidence that you are prepared to see what they do next. We can test for vulnerability across infrastructure. We can't with visibility. There's not a way to do it right now. Even if you use a commercial breach and attack simulation platform, which I personally hate, and I can get into that later because I don't think that they do all the things that they say they're supposed to do, that is still a sampled approach. This type of approach for testing visibility needs to be high fidelity signal. We don't want to inundate our SOC or our response teams with a lot of false or simulated or fake alerts. We want everything to scream at them for the most critical TTPs that hit the SIM. Also, vulnerability is already in your metrics program. This is in the GRC track. That doesn't mean you're all GRC professionals, but you at least have GRC friends, as I do, right? And in your programs, in the metrics that you report, you have vulnerability metrics, right? Right? Hands up. You all, like, what else do you have? Like, that's one of the main things that you report on. Do you have visibility metrics in your dashboards? Maybe some of you, because how do you capture it, right? That's what we're going to show you. Okay, Kristen, tell us about, once again, this is on Vector.io. My organization publishes the benchmark on a quarterly basis for what does it look like to take this health index test.
So when we look at actually taking the test, the beauty of it is that after everyone's come together and we've created the workshop, all of the results, all of the actual testing that you will execute is available and downloadable on GitHub. The index itself is publicly available. And the index itself is actually testing what you would do as you go through a purple team to be able to test through the attack techniques themselves. But this is intentionally designed to be a very difficult and very challenging test. Purple teams, by their nature, are testing how well do your technologies actually say that they do what they do. The vendors will tell you what to expect that they can detect, but until you actually inspect it, you don't actually know whether or not you can believe it.
Would you say you inspect what you expect?
Indeed, you
Catchphrase.
do.
Catchphrase alert. Good principle.
And along those lines, oftentimes what the vendors tell you their products will do is not actually what you see in real life. So there are a lot of misnomers. So fundamentally, you are taking a very difficult test that is a purple team test of your tools and your technologies based on the current threat intelligence and the adversaries targeting your industry vertical, and you have the ability out of that to report up how well you are doing. But just like we used to say at MITRE, don't turn all of the attack matrix green, and please, for the love of God, do not turn the matrix green. You can't, I've tried, and it's not worth it. And it's not something you should do. You also cannot necessarily hit 100% every single time on a threat resilience benchmark score. I think the highest score we've ever seen previously has been about 85%. This is about that continuous iterative approach toward making progress. It's not about perfection. You're not gonna hit that perfect score the first time out. In fact, the first time out, when we used to hand calculate what the results were out of our MITRE Purple Team games, the scores were pretty abysmal. Now, to be fair, that was before EDR technologies existed. So we were hand calculating scores because we were also sitting back and working on our own tools to detect things for what ultimately became the EDR area and the EDR industry. But if you really look at it, it's about making continuous threat-informed progress. Don't aim for perfection.
Okay, so I know that there's no art history majors in the room, unless you've arrived since when I asked that question when there were fewer of you. There's a reason that I asked that question. The average here is 57%. If you have high schoolers like I do, and they come home with a 57% on any exam, they lose privileges to things, because that means that they were neglecting on something they could have done better. If you took an art history class in college and you got a 57 on that test, you didn't study. And it was very achievable for you to get an A because it was art history. You just needed to memorize the paintings or whatever it was about. However, if you were an organic chemistry major in college, or a physics or an astrophysics major, you didn't necessarily get an A on the test no matter what you did. Maybe nobody did. And so what I want you to understand about this test is it is intentionally difficult, not because we're sadists. It's intentionally difficult because our adversaries are very good. And this is intended to represent what they actually do when they're on our network. And I probably don't need to convince you that our adversaries are often very successful when they get on our network. This is a tough exam that you take on purpose because you're okay with saying, hey, we're not great at this, and the bad guys are really good at what they do. That's the bad news. The good news is, well, now we know what we should work on, and we know what we should fix. So we'll show you a little bit what that looks like. But I want to talk about the idea of flipping the burden of perfection. Because even if you are only able to achieve a 57%, or if you get to the zenith of maybe an 85, which you're right, we've never seen anybody do better. Even if you get to 50% score on this type of test, you will have effectively flipped the burden of perfection from your team to the adversary. Your team doesn't have to be perfect anymore. They've practiced the most likely and common things and detections that are going to happen. So let me illustrate flipping the burden of perfection. This is the most basic and crudely drawn PowerPoint-based security system. So I have a person in PowerPoint art, smart art even, who has to step over this single detection in order to get to a box of cash. Very easy for an adversary to bypass because there is a single thing and it's literally lower than their knee and they can just step over it. So let's flip the burden of perfection a little bit more and look at a different example. Here, we have a mother using her child to help bypass the security system. So we have a smaller person who's able to crawl under several more laser beams. We're raising the bar here, but we still maybe haven't flipped the burden of perfection. Here, we have discount Britney Spears, for some reason, acrobatically jumping through a bunch of other types of lasers that looks much more difficult, but Britney Spears is really good at this, so she's doing it. Here we have a guy doing a headstand, which also makes him better at it. I'm not sure what movie this comes from, and I want to point out that probably, oh sweet, are you done already? Yes, we're going to show this, we're going to show it at the end, we're going to show it at the end. But probably this image has been registered and paid for. And then here we have the ultimate security system. I think this is from the Resident Evil movie, of how we have absolutely flipped the burden of perfection, and the adversary actually does not have a prayer of entering through this matrix without being detected. Maybe that's a little too far. Maybe we don't have that type of resource in our environment, but you get the idea. We are creating many reliable detections to flip the burden of perfection from us onto the adversary. And when you get a bad score for the first time, it might not be that bad. You can understand what your score is relative to standard distributions. And this is why not everybody fails the organic chemistry test, is because when they get 60s, they realize, actually, that's a pretty good grade because a lot of people got 20s. So you understand the context of your score when you do this as well. Okay, so now we're going to do a demo in a GRC track. Is that okay? Do we have your permission? We're gonna cool it though. It's not gonna be like a live demo because we're not gonna attempt that. But what we want to show you is how you can put this index to work. We've talked about this nebulous plan that you haven't seen other than in a weird spider diagram. You know who it maps back to this year. But I want to show you Vector. This is a free platform that you can go get right now. Again, great opportunity for you to go on your phone and mark this and check your email and not be rude if you want to do that. Okay, so this is what the index looks like when it's loaded into Vector. You can basically, it's just a JSON file that you can drag and drop over there or click the import button, and you can see that all of the different tactics are represented here across the 50 different TTPs that we've built. We can click on something like, say, defense evasion, because it's one of my favorites. And when we look at defense evasion, we can see what are the different technical attacks that we're going to ask our consultants or our red team or our purple team or whatever it is to help run this. And as GRC professionals, assuming some of you are, you need to be there to witness this and to understand what happens, because these are little test cases that really matter a lot for the organization to understand if you're good at it or not. Kristen, tell us how the test goes when you do this correctly.
Sure. So here's why I actually really enjoy working with the Vector platform. Because first and foremost, when I'm trying to force teams into doing purple team games, and usually it does start with a little bit of forcing because everyone's nervous about them. They haven't done them before and they don't know what to expect. I emphasize that it's an exercise in collaboration and teamwork. My network teams, my engineering teams, my SOC, my SIM teams, they all think about things through their lens, their viewpoint, and their prism. But when you're doing a purple team exercise, you should purposely be bringing everyone to the table and having everyone participate in the exercise, because at the end of the day, everyone has a stake in what the in-state outcome is, and everyone has a role to play in getting you to a successful outcome. And success isn't just finishing the purple team exercise itself, it's doing the purple team, identifying where your areas of opportunity are, remediating those, and then reiterating the cycle and going back to the next purple team and seeing how far you can get the next time around. So starting on the left-hand side of the Vector program, you actually see the red side, right? This is the adversary side. So in that upper left-hand corner where it says status completed, that's the actual replay. And the red team details will walk you through the actual procedure you're going through. And in the bottom below there in the red circle is the operator guidance. This actually tells you how you can operationalize the test itself that you need to do the test against the MITRE technique.
Kristen, can I add here too, because this is one of the points you made in the beginning about the limitation of MITRE ATT&CK. MITRE ATT&CK tells you about a technique, but it doesn't tell you how to do it. And so this working group that we have together, this is part of what they agree to. So if we're going to do this test case as part of it, and it's an in-memory password attack, great, how do I do it? If you're running it at your massive pharmaceutical organization, or if you're running it at your smaller pharmaceutical organization, it only becomes benchmarkable if you do it the same way. Otherwise, it's not apples to apples. So part of the power of this group that gets together is they agree to what should the test look like so we're all doing the same thing. And so having that documented here allows us to say, yes, we're doing this consistently. It's not Q&A time, but I can't resist. What's your question? What? Oh. Yeah, the question is this a tabletop exercise or is it more of like an offline exercise? Is that what you mean? Tabletop. I'm starting to see organizations call this not a purple team. Sure, maybe it is. I don't say purple team. You say purple team a lot, by the way. It is a purple team.
I'm used to it.
But it means different things to different people, and I don't like to use loaded terms. But everybody does tabletop exercises, except for NIST CSF, apparently. But I'm starting to see organizations describe this process as a technical or an adversary simulation tabletop exercise. What I like about that is if you're trying to encourage your organization to do this, they're like, oh, tabletop, yeah, we're supposed to do that. Again, not per NIST, right? Great question, though.
So I'll give you my answer to your question. I think of a TTX as actually sitting around and talking through a scenario. And that's great, and it's helpful, and it's a place to start. But the reason why I like this is that it's actually hands-on. When we come in and do these, Tim's team comes on in, they run the index, we see the attacks, and my SOC has to actually respond. What do we see that's alerted? What's blocked? What's local telemetry? What's centrally logged? In that sense, it's a little more hands-on, and that's why I've always found value out of it, and that's why you'll hear me refer to them as a purple team. But flipping over to the right-hand side of this, that's the blue pane, right? Think of it as your SOC Defender pane. As you're running all of your exercises, as you're running through to see and test all your individual techniques, Then you've got to figure out what is your outcome. Do you have nothing on it? Do you have some kind of alert? Was something blocked? Is there some kind of logging or local telemetry? So you're going to be able to characterize all of those. You're going to add in your evidence. And pro tip for those of you who may do this for the first time and haven't ever tried it before, if your teams are really nervous about trying to get all their evidence done in time, we stash all of ours in a OneNote and then go back and load it into the platform. That way we've got a dumping ground to put all of our notes from every single outcome and then go back and make it pretty and add it all in. And we can make sure we haven't missed anything. Because as has been mentioned in other talks, sometimes in reality, when you actually see the alert, maybe 4 to 7 hours after when the attack happened, because your tools can be slow.
Kristen, that's a really good segue though too. And my plea to you, if you decide to do this approach, it's valuable, but here are the 2 reasons to do this synchronously as a workshop, whether you call it a TTX or otherwise. If you do this asynchronously, you will lose the opportunity for team collaboration on the correct results. So if you said, hey, we have a red team, we're gonna have them run this, they'll document it, they'll throw it over to the blue team, and they'll throw their notes on top of it, you're gonna miss some things. One of the things is having collaborative discussion around the outcome. So in this case, you can see we have an outcome that's blocked but not alerted. Oh, blocked, we're good, right? Well, hang on. What's the context of this test case? This is an in-memory password attack. Very low likelihood of a false positive. And so you're telling me now that in our current system, let's say this triggered in an EDR, we blocked it, but we didn't see it. If you have the right people in the room, they're gonna challenge and say, that's not a successful outcome yet. It might actually be a quick win to fix it, but right now, an adversary did something bad and we didn't see them, so what's the adversary gonna do? Move on to a different technique that actually works, because we know that alerting is low at that point. So you want your teams together, red, blue, SOC, Intel, whoever they are, and GRC, please, because you're the ones who are going to help communicate the message and show what these quantitative benchmarks actually mean relative to your peers. You want them all there to keep the test honest. The next reason why you want to do this together is co-ownership of the results. This is not a red team metric in my mind, it's not a blue team metric. This is a threat resilience metric that represents how well your organization can detect an advanced adversary on your network. If that's not everyone's problem in your security team, maybe you should revisit your priorities and your charter. That should be everybody's problem. So co-ownership of the results are part of this.
So along those lines, there's a reason down here at the bottom on the right-hand side where we have tags. Because at the end of the day, you're gonna look at all of your outcomes and you may find as you go through the test where you've got opportunities, whether it's remediation or further improvement. So you can go on ahead and you can tag those actions, and we'll talk about how to action those in the next couple of slides. All right, so let's talk about analyzing your results. When I get a readout and a report from Vector, I'm looking by starting at 2 big buckets and then 5 different categories within those buckets. That which is successful outcomes and that which is needs improvement. In successful outcomes in Vector, they're categorized according to what is blocked and what is alerted. And in needs improvement, you've got centrally logged, you've got local telemetry, and none. Personally, I like to start at that which is centrally logged, because really, it means that all you need to do from there is take your central logging of your results and implement it in your SIEM to go on ahead to get to alerting. Local telemetry, on the other hand, means that there's more work to be done with your network or your engineering teams, and you need to go back and work with your individual technology owners, because you need to be able to grab more information to be able to see how you can get to central logging and then how you can get to your SIEM. And if you're starting in the none category, then there's probably a good chance you've got a gap in your technology or one of your vendor configurations didn't actually function like you expected it to. But flip on over to the next slide, thanks. So again, with analyzing your results, I start on the pie chart on the left every single time I get this report. And I look right to what is logged in yellow. Because if it's showing up as logged in yellow, that means it's landing in that centrally logged category for me. And those are my quickest wins in terms of where do I want to go next in making quick improvements and remediations to increase my score overall. I'm also going to re-examine what do I have in the none category and how difficult is it to get it to some state of local telemetry or to get it to a state of central logging. And sometimes I will go back and recheck what is in my blocked section to see, was everything that was blocked proper to be blocked? Or did it come up as blocked and that's not actually the action that should have been taken? If you block everything, your SOC has nothing to respond to. If you alert on everything, your SOC is flooded every day.
Also, if you block everything, you just broke your business. I think we could agree that's not a viable option. Some things you can only detect.
Yep. And so then flipping to that right-hand side, there's a couple of different ways to read through graphs. You can look at graphs within Vector that are aligned to the different attack tactic chains, so you can see how you are doing in each category. So you may be able to discover, well, am I really weak in command and control, or am I really weak in insight and lateral movement? Or you can look at what we've got here, which is looking across your different technologies. So for example, the fact that there is so much red in SIEM tells me that somehow your basic out-of-the-box configurations for it fundamentally aren't set up how they should be. You shouldn't normally see that much that comes up as none right out of the box when you've set up your SIEM with some of your basic configurations. That's another area that's some ripe area for improvement. Flip on over to the heat maps.
Everybody loves the MITRE ATT&CK heat map, and this is actually one of the favorite features of Vector users since we've been providing this platform. But the thing you're going to see about this heat map right away is, as Kristen said, it's not all green or it's not all blue. And your SIEM right now is lying to you badly. I promise. I've seen a lot of SIEMs. I may have even seen some of your SIEMs before. And your SIEM thinks that because they have an analytic that's loosely associated with a TTP and MITRE ATT&CK, that you are good to go and actively blocking or detecting it. And earlier you said, inspect what you inspect, what you expect. And that is a principle you need to remind yourself. Just because you have that analytic does not mean you're actually going to detect that at 3 a.m. on the 4th of July or whatever holiday you hold holy, and you're counting on your SOC to pick up on that alert. So this is a shockingly honest view of MITRE ATT&CK. It's also a much smaller subsection of it. Your SIEM right now shows an entire huge MITRE map that goes way off the page. You got scroll to get to the bottom with a whole bunch of MITRE IDs that haven't been prioritized either for your organization or for the industry. You see the index at work, the cross section of MITRE ATT&CK that you should focus on. It doesn't mean this is all you should be good at detecting, but it is what you should at least have as a cornerstone. And then build some more of the use cases that are specific to your business and your environment. Load them into Vector. The people who've been using Vector for a long time, it becomes like a security test case repo for them. The things that they want to be able to test for validation in their environment and retest at different intervals to say, hey, are we still good at that? Can we still detect that? What was the result last time? And this is why I really like GRC folks getting involved in this process, because you understand documentation. Sorry, red teamers and security testers who hate writing down what you did. We need to see it so that we can actually address it and make improvements in the environment. And so now, you can start to tell your story. I do not suggest that you take a MITRE ATT&CK heat map, no matter how much we've compacted it and colored it, to your board. If you do, you've got a special board. Like, that's neat. Like, if they find that interesting, and you're going to explain to them what that is. So this is more of an operational view. What we can do by doing this test over time, whether you decide to do it twice a year or 4 times a year, and I will caution you against doing it once a year. Anybody know why? Anybody have an idea of why you shouldn't do this just once a year if you decide to do it at all? The TTPs change every day, but the test changes once a year. You will always be behind the 8 ball. Because even organizations who do this 4 times a year, after their Q4 test, when they do it again in Q1, they dip. Why? There's new techniques that are reflected, and they never tested themselves against that. So when they do it, they're like, oh, woo, shoot, little dip, but let's fix those things, and we're gonna get them in a sprint, and we'll be back up to our normal score in Q2 or whatever interval they're on. So you gotta don't do this once. Do this twice, or do it more to be able to tell your story first like this, in a colorblind, insensitive heat map, like everything else we've ever done in security and privacy since the history of what we've done. And actually, this is true. One of my Purple Team MCs, one of my Purple Team leads, is colorblind. And I don't even know how he does this. Like we're going through like a workshop, and we're like, so yeah, this spot over here is red. And he's like, once again, I don't know how many times to tell you, I cannot see that spot. But he's still really good at his job. So you can tell your story this way. And what I want you to see here, it's a little bit small, is that TRB, Threat Resilience Benchmark. This is what it looks like at 56%. This is what it looks like at 76%. And we're starting to tell a story. We didn't finish with MITRE ATT&CK. We're not compliant with MITRE ATT&CK. We have a strategy, and the strategy is, well, after we ran through this for the first time, we realized it's really hard to win the test cases that go further right in the adversary's attack path. It's hard to win once they're that far in. So maybe a good strategy for this organization with some limited resources is to focus on the left, early detection, early prevention. And that's what we've done in this 56 to 76% example. Look how green the left side is. That's our strategy, and we can still articulate to management, look, there's some stuff further out we don't have the resourcing for, but it's okay. We feel like we're covered. We feel like we've flipped the burden of perfection back onto the adversary. One of the ways that you'll know that you're winning, by the way, through your early gains of this, you will catch your pen testers every time. You will shut them down, which is if you're a blue team or you're on a SOC, it's pretty fun to do. Like, they're like, oh, how'd you see us? We just started. Like, yeah, well, we knew what you were going to do. And we practiced it, and we saw it right away. And if you can catch your pen testers, that's a good start. But as you continue to practice, you'll start catching the real bad guys, and you'll catch the advanced red teamers, and you'll catch everybody else too. Okay, so the other thing I want you to see is this is the more board and executive management view of this type of thing. The threat resilience benchmark is a single number. I want to recap this for you real quick. We've taken the current e-crime nation-state threat actor groups targeting several industries, distilled them down to a single test plan, made that test plan compact so you can run it in a couple of days, and you do have time for that with all the things that you're doing. Run that test plan in a couple of days, and then produce a single number that says this is our threat resilience benchmark, and match it to the one that's posted, and say we have a story. And you can tell that over time in Vector. Vector charts your progress. And you can see there's natural dips. And there may be different reasons for that. So maybe the Q2 to Q3 test is we changed our EDR because we had to, or you made me rip out our SIM and put in a new SIM because we had to. Yeah, and we lost some parity. This helped us stay on track. I know organizations that have used this method to say, and they kind of coined this idea of index-driven defense of we have to make a whole lot of changes in our organization, and if we're going to change our tooling, this is how we know we haven't slid backward, and how we chart to make sure we're actually even going to get better past that. So
I'm gonna make
I've
you
recapped
back
most
up
of this.
one.
Okay, but I don't think we have a lot of time.
I know.
All right.
But I talk fast.
And I don't
We've
say no to you,
established this.
ever.
Flip up to threat resilience. So there's one other element in here that's the story is missing. Go forward one. When you look at the dip, he was able to talk about how you can see your technology is changing, but I want to talk about the fact that you can also see when the threat index itself changes. So for example, last year, we subbed out Cobalt Strike in C2 for the Mythic framework. Cobalt Strike's pretty heavily signatured in a lot of different technologies, a lot of different vendors, and a lot of different environments. When you make that change for the Mythic framework, all of a sudden, across Purple Team exercises, across Vector instances everywhere in the outcome, you're going to see changes like that change around. You're going to see your scores dip. So as the adversaries evolve and as you retest for that, you're going to see those changes in your scores. Go for it.
Great. These are our takeaways. I think we covered most of these. And if you find any of the slides interesting here, if you take pictures of any of the slides, this is probably the one for you. I'm not offended if you don't take a picture of it, though, but this has a lot of the core concepts. And then, Kristen, help us with some takeaways.
Sure. So my best advice to you, if you're not sure where to start, come and have a conversation with Tim to learn more about Vector, learn more about purple teaming, and learn more about the process. And like he mentioned before, if your teams are concerned about doing purple teaming, don't start with 1 a year, start with 2 a year. 2 a year gets you the time in the middle to do your remediations and start thinking about how much time do you need to make your improvements. It also gets you the beginning of the start of telling your story so you can work through it. So in the first 3 months, run your first test. A test on the long end, which is how I tend to run them in my environment, can take you 4 days. But 4 days is really on that long end. You can run them in as fast as 2 days. We do tend to do a blue team workshop afterward. That's a forced gathering of all parties so that everyone can sit down, re-review the results and agree on them, and then you know how to go forward and you know where your opportunities are for remediation. And then 6 months from now, after you've done your remediation in the middle, go rerun your test and see where you land.
So we've had a lot of fun. Thank you so much for doing this. Thanks to our contestants. Anybody who got bingo can come claim a prize or money from my wallet. Be great security professionals. Keep asking good questions. Be great people. Hire students and career changers, please. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.